Hello, Chiefs Kingdom, and welcome to the Arrowhead Kingdom Chiefs cast, live from the Wolf Den. I'm Chris.
And I'm Josh, and today we're going to be talking about the dragging part of the offseason, which is where we are right now. But things are about to get fun with the drafts. We're going to talk about that as well. Big reminder that all Chiefs fans are invited to join us for game day. Visit arrowheadkingdom.org to learn more about the group and to find your local chapter. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel as well.
All right, today, just as Josh touched upon, we're going to be talking a lot about the draft today. And then I think we might even slip in something that happened a few weeks ago on one Monday night.
I'd say we will as well. Keep in mind, we're presented by Complete Weddings and Events, your leading provider of photo, video, DJ, photo booth, lighting, and coordination services. Visit them at completewedo.com. And Chris, there you go. Let's just go ahead and break that out as the first topic. We see Brian's background. How about those Rock Chalk Jayhawks?
Yay! I'm still riding high.
Yeah.
Hold on. I got a thing here. Oh.
So one thing I'm going to point out while Brian's getting his thing here is a couple years ago, we got some guff for not covering the loss to the Bucks very quickly. We waited 2 weeks and we're all three fans of the Jayhawks. So there you go with that. Yeah. Back on top. I like it.
Yeah. I woke up at 6:30 to go to Quick Trip to make sure I got one, even though I'm sure they restock them just as fast as they sell out, but I didn't want to take that chance. So
no, good call. Are you going to frame it or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm gonna go get it framed and go from there. But yeah. Oh, what a life. What a day. Oh my God. I was so exhausted. I realized as I get how much older I am these days, and like going from elite to Final Four, everyone rushes Storm's Mass Street, Final Four to Final Two, championship. You rush Mass Street again, championship game. You better believe, of course, that's gonna be the biggest one of all. By that time, I was like, I don't think I could do this 3 out of the last 7 days or whatever. Let the young, youthful, and the people who took care of themselves a little bit better than I did go do that. But yeah, it was an extremely fun experience here in Lawrence, Kansas, to be here to be part of that. And what were you guys thinking during the whole game?
So Chris and I watched that game together, and it was definitely because Chris, that's the Alumni Association locally here that we watch with, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's the official Alumni Association of, I don't know if it's just Southeast Wisconsin or Milwaukee specifically, but yeah. Because we can get some people in from Madison every now and then. Yeah,
no. So Chris and I were definitely watching the game together. We were at this gem of a local brewery in the Milwaukee area called Ray's Grain, and they're actually closed on Monday nights, which is when the national championship was played. But they opened for the KU Alumni Association local group. So I definitely went out there and watched with Chris and his lovely wife, and I think she sat in the car for half the game because she was. Chain smoking cigarettes or something to that effect.
It brought some flashbacks to 2008 because she did the same thing. We watched that game at the old Chicago, which I don't think is there anymore, in 23rd and Iowa. And yeah, I'm pretty sure she spent probably an hour and a half of that 2-hour game outside. But
That was weird.
Go ahead, Brian.
What was weird during that is even when we're down 15 going into the half or whatever it was, I looked at Tanya and I go, I don't feel like we're playing that bad. It's like, I feel like we're playing pretty good, actually. And we're just, a lot of things are getting away from us and they're getting a lot of second chances. But I mean, I know that's crazy talk. Maybe I'm out of my mind, but I felt weirdly comfortable going the second half. Obviously I was also frustrated, but something like, if we just keep playing like this, if they go cold or the things tied, if UNC stops taking advantage of every little thing they get access to, there was a lot of second chances for them. Just gotta shut that off, and if they go cold, we'll be back in this fairly quick. And it happened. But yeah, it was a really bizarre thing. I mean, I felt we're fairly good in the first half as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, I'll let Chris tell you how I was at halftime.
I think a lot of us were just kind of, I don't know if stun's the right word, but we're just kind of like, I remember I was just trying to talk myself up, saying, okay, we came back against Miami, why can't we do the same here?
You know what?
I kept trying to lean on that, and they did. Go ahead, Brian.
You know what scene goes through my head? What movie scene goes through my head whenever I've officially have decided that I think it's over? And this scene had not gone through my head yet, but it's that scene from Armageddon when Steve Buscemi says, "It's time to embrace the horror."
We
And
have front row seats to the end of the world, folks. I don't know why you're not enjoying this.
basically have front row seats at the end of the world. Let's enjoy this. So like that, I mean, that's normally like that usually comes around when we're down like 13 with 2 minutes left or something like that. I'm like, all right, let's embrace the horror here. But that had not yet entered my mind yet. So that's how I know, like, that's just like my natural tone, my natural mindset. So it hadn't happened yet, but I'm with you as well. I was not exactly a happy camper at half times either. So.
I mean, I was walking around telling Chris that we were winning the game. I'm like, we're winning this. You know that, right?
Oh, really? Okay, nice. Yeah.
He did. And it was funny. I think you called the Ochai Abaji and one that I think did it tie the game or to give us the lead. I couldn't remember, but you called it.
Yeah. No, I was feeling that one the whole time. I was feeling that the whole time. And, I write my weekly column for Arrowhead One. And the thing that I put in there is every single year that I can remember filling out an NCAA bracket, I always fill one out and have KU winning. And I always do that. I'm not going to say that I only always fill out one, but it's definitely a homer type of situation, but at the same time, they're always a top 3 seed. So it's not really completely ridiculous either. I would say that this year was one of the lower levels of belief that I have, if I'm being completely honest. I just didn't really see them putting it together for 6 games in a row. I started to feel good and thinking that there was maybe possibility for some magic when they beat Texas Tech in the Big 12 tournament. I'm like, okay, that's the kind of game that a flawed team loses, and they took care of business in that one. So maybe they're solid. Get through the first weekend without any kind of real incident. And then I had the fortune of getting to go to the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games because they were in Chicago, and it's an hour and a half from my house to get to the United Center. So that Providence game was a little sketchy. I don't think I ever really felt anything sketchy at all for the Miami game. That one just never felt out of control, the entire time. The Providence game was probably the most nervous that I was the entire tournament, with the exception of the national championship game. And then they just took care of business with Villanova. And I'm like, yeah, they're going to win this. They're going to win this. There is no way they're going to let North Carolina get another title when they have the opportunity. They're going to close the deal. And I felt that way the entire time. And it was, a good feeling to be completely validated, because it's not always how that goes. I was feeling the Chiefs against the Bengals as well at a higher level.
I think a lot of people were. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I started about the same time you did, Josh, because I felt like the team really struggled against big athletic front courts. Kentucky took it to them, and then they had trouble with TCU.
Yeah.
That last week of the regular season, I thought going into North Carolina, I thought this might be their kryptonite, given how good North Carolina is, especially on the boards. And they still got out rebounded like crazy, but North Carolina only shot like 32%, I think, and they held both the Caleb Love and it's RJ Davis, both of those guys, to I think 30% shooting. I mean, that's really what won them the game, was that and just getting hot offensively in the second half. But yeah, once they got through the Big 12 tournament, I started to think, okay, they could maybe make a run to the Elite Eights. And I was nervous during that Miami game because it kind of felt like the Oregon game, a few years ago. I think it was 2017,
Yep.
where it's like, okay, this is happening again. But man, they just flipped a switch in that second half, and then I started feeling like, okay, this can happen.
Yeah, just the level of team chemistry and how at the drop of a hat, Self was able to just dial up the defensive intensity.
He was able to get the team to
do that. It was great. I mean, that was the most impressive part of it.
He outcoached the pants off of Hubert Davis in that second half. I mean, just the job he did all year, I mean, is just, he was so phenomenal. And I'll talk about this later, but I mean, he's probably the best head coach right now in college basketball.
Sure. Got it. Brian, anything else about the Jayhawk national championship before we roll on to the little bit of Chief stuff we have to get into?
I just want to say that was a lot of fun, and we love seeing it here in Lawrence. It was fun to see Lawrence on the, represented in the, national media there. I just want to, I'll be paying attention to the NBA draft, and let's see if any one of those key players maybe want to stick around for maybe one more year. Maybe they'll get paid more in the name and likeness versus the, well, not the NBA obviously, but I don't know if like they're in what's that called, development league. I don't know if they're that.
Well, it's the G League, yeah. Yeah, the G League.
Maybe they'll get paid more as a NCAA champions coming back. Who knows? I don't care. We'll just stay here. Just stick around and do it. Let's do it again. Huh?
You've got the Wooden and Naismith player of the year coming back next year, and Oscar Sheboy, because of what you just said, Brian. He's probably going to make more money in Lexington than he is going to trying to make it on an NBA team next year.
Yeah, no, and that's going to be an interesting dynamic. I'm glad you brought that up, because there, I think, is some legitimate possibility that if you're not going to a lottery team, is it really gonna be worse if you get your name and likeness and go back?
Yeah, I mean, it's that's what I always said. Like, people, I remember having this discussion for years where people, the one and done, I'm like, and people will get frustrated. I'm like, look, this guy's been playing basketball probably since he was 5 years old, and he is one snapped ankle away from not being able to do it anymore. You better go get your money and get it now while you can. Mm-hmm. So that's why I never really talked any smack on that kind of mindset. But now, if you can make as much money, and yeah, it basically summed it up. I think just let's see what happens with that. Let's see if some core players might come back. That'd be great.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so the other draft that's coming up is the NFL draft, which is on Thursday the 28th. And for me personally, this is the beginning of the NFL offseason. Yeah, there's stuff that's happened before now. I think that this is the first month when free agency starts to hit. If you're a Jets fan, you can kind of believe, because they normally splash and spend big money because they have really high draft picks to trade and stuff like that. I mean, really, the entire Andy Reid era, aside from like the Patrick Mahomes extension and things like that, I don't really think that first month of the season has ever really been that interesting. There's more of a preparing to stabilize the team than trying to splash and do something crazy. And we're not talking about what we're going to do with our top 5 pick or anything like that. So the draft is where stuff really gets interesting, even if we are picking 31st, 32nd, one of those things. So in this situation, it's the same thing, 29th and 30th, but we have 12 picks, which is the absolute most of anybody in the NFL. And the general consensus word on the street with national media is that edge rusher, cornerback, and wide receiver are our top 3 needs. So Chris, do you have any argument with that list, or is that what you see as the biggest thing we need to be looking at in the first couple of rounds?
Well, I wouldn't just limit it to quarterback or cornerback. I would say just secondary in general. But, one thing that I think they should be looking at as well, and this, it gets brought up a lot on the podcasts I listen to, is they still kind of need a right tackle. Mm-hmm. Andrew Wiley got re-signed, but I think Andrew Wiley best serves this team as a swing backup player, and then it's hard to count on Lucas Niang with his health.
Yep.
And I don't think Mike Rimmers is coming back. I mean, you get a back injury as an offensive lineman. I mean, you look at Mitchell Schwartz, that pretty much ended his career. So I think that's something else they got to look at. And then the other thing is some linebacker depth. I mean, Willie Gay and Nick Bolton have really seemed to, it definitely got me excited about the defense next year on that level. But after them, I mean, Ben Neiman's not on the team anymore, and I think a lot of people are rejoicing that. But can you name any other linebacker on the team other than Willie Gay or Nick Bolton?
Yeah, not really.
Yeah, so
yeah, no, good call.
But that's what I've been saying all along, and why I've wanted them to, hold on to their 12 picks, is because they really need to build some depth on this roster. They may not get that really splashy wide receiver or that, elite edge rusher. It's hard to when you're picking at the bottom of the first round. But, one thing that they've proven over the years is they're actually very good at getting value in the later rounds. And I can't remember the article, if I read it in The Athletic or if it was on CBS, but someone wrote an article about The best, I guess, the top franchises in the 2010s that got the best value for their draft picks. And
That was on
number one
ESPN, and the Chiefs were
it
number
was
2 behind the
ESPN, yeah,
Seahawks.
behind
Yeah.
Seattle, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I really like the fact, and I hope they, if they do trade up for someone, and I'm pretty confident on making this prediction, but if they trade up for someone, it's going to be Jamison Williams. I can't see them trading up for anyone else, but he keeps going up the board right now, and I think that's going to be harder and harder for them to do without giving up too much. But yeah, that's where I see them, outside of the 3 positions you said, Josh, where they should be looking as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see him trading up for anything other than an edge. Lance Tidwell from the Spoken does a really good job of laying stuff out, where if you look at the best edge rushers over the course of a 5-10 year period of time, they're all first rounders. The best pass rushers are first rounders. But when you look
they're
at
like
the
top 15 typically too.
Yeah, but when you look at the best wide receivers, they're not in the first round. And in fact, it's harder to come up with a first round wide receiver that works out really well. And I was looking at another article. I can't remember who did this. It was one of the Chiefs sites, but it was the 10 biggest draft busts that we've ever had. And John Baldwin and Sylvester Morris were on there. And those are the 2 times that we tried to take a first round wide receiver. That draft value thing that we were talking about, the 2 years that really blew that up were 16 and 17 when we had Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill was a first round receiver that got himself in trouble and fell to the 5th. And, John
another
Lewis,
guy to think about too. This got brought up is remember Joe Horn?
Yeah,
Joe Horn was he was like a 6th or 7th round draft pick. Fortunately we didn't hold on to him, but man.
No, I know. I love Joe Horn. That cell phone thing
too.
under the pylon. Oh my God.
I loved it. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit that I was about as anti-TO as you could get when he's doing stuff like signing footballs and stuff like that. At this point, I would probably be way more amused, but some of that was just not liking TO and looking for reasons for that. But during that same period of time, Joe Horn, Brian, I don't know if you remember this game, but he scores a touchdown for the Saints. And he pulls a cell phone out of the bottom of the goalpost and picks up the phone and calls somebody. I was like, that is awesome.
Yeah, didn't he? It was like a flip phone.
Fine, you're gonna get.
Yeah,
it's a flip phone too. It was like, what? I'm like, is that still cool? I think it's still cool. Right? He's using a flip phone to call somebody. He doesn't. He probably or the 8, the 7, 5, 7, 4, 3, 10 digits. Excuse me.
Yeah,
I had to think about that.
Yep. So yeah, Brian, anything else you're looking forward to in the draft?
No, I think you guys covered all of it there. It'll be interesting to see where they go for. I'm really glad we're not really talking much. I mean, I guess Chris did a little bit, but last year around this time last year, we were talking about replacing the front line there, the offensive line, and now the discussion is about filling the holes with our players who've moved on. But yeah, I've said that many times throughout the last season. It's like, I'm really glad that the offensive line isn't much of a discussion right now because that was what we talked about so much last year. So, but yeah, here's, and I did not know that, Josh. I did not know that wide receivers, like great, they tend to be drafted not the first, in things known as not the first round. So I'll be looking forward to seeing what happens there too.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. And I'm kind of with Chris. I'm not really looking for a bunch of package picks and trade up, too terrible much. I mean, use the 12. We don't have enough room on the roster to keep all 12. Who says you have to? Let's have options.
Yeah, Brett Veach, if you listen to his press conference earlier in the week, but he was pretty much saying that he thinks the real value in this draft is, I think, in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. I'm kind of paraphrasing what he said.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping he holds to that. He could be smoke screening for all we know. I mean, that goes on a lot as far as interviews go up to the draft, but at least he seems to have adjusted his philosophy right now on how he's going after players. Now that the team has, obviously they're in a different cap situation, and I've called this the 2nd phase of Patrick Mahomes' career.
Yep. Hopefully we get 3 or 4 like Tom Brady. So yeah, I mean, 2nd round, Nick Bolton, Creed Humphrey. I'd love to see what Veach does with a deep 2nd round. All right. So speaking of the draft, we're going to be coming with a ton of video content for all of our Arrowhead Kingdom peeps throughout that. So we will be doing different kind of check-ins with some of the groups, and we'll be doing some analysis over notable picks. We don't have a firm schedule. We're gonna kind of make it work. We'll be looking for a ton of video content out of us that day. If we do trade up, we'll certainly be talking about that as well. So we kind of addressed the trade up piece. I think Chris and I are kind of the we're not thinking it's going to happen unless something just really kind of presents itself, and Veach has an opportunity to be really opportunistic and, you know, trade up 5-10 picks to get somebody that would fit perfectly. I don't think he's going to trade up into the top 10 to grab somebody, but anyway, so another piece of open business. We let Tyrann Mathieu walk, and he doesn't have a home. So there's more rumblings kind of going on that a potential reunion on a short-term deal, like a 1 year or something to that effect, might be in order. Brian, would you like to see Tyrann Mathieu back?
Well, yeah, I think so. Yeah, he's been a part of the club during the last few years. I don't know. I've not been paying attention to any. I don't know if he had any parting shots or anything like that, or any kind of lip service on social media or anything like that. But that's neither here nor there. Just yeah, I'd like to see him back, keep doing what he does, and he's been instrumental in getting us to where we've been the last few years. So I'd like to see him back.
His parting shots have been kind of reflective remorse. All the shots that you're kind of talking about happened during the regular season when the team wasn't doing very well. He was a guy calling the Chiefs fans a toxic fan base and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I never necessarily took that personally because I understood 100% where he was going. I mean, over the course of the Patrick Mahomes era, more and more the banter online has looked very much like the kind of stuff that we always got mad at Patriots fans for.
Yeah, he was sticking up for his teammate more than anything. I mean, yeah. Anthony Hitchens was getting trashed, and he's coming to his back, getting his back.
Yeah. Yep, and he's always been a shoot first, aim later with his words, which is also, the good and bad part of him.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that's one of those whenever someone gets offended, if someone were to get offended by that kind of rhetoric, like saying like how toxic Chiefs fans are, if someone were to get offended, you're kind of telling on yourself, because it's like, I would not get offended if I thought this was going to me. I get like the team fandom unity, but it's also like we all know toxic fans out there who are behaving inappropriately or saying inappropriate things. So
can't count how many times I've been toxic or a complete a-hole as a fan. I mean, I admit to it. So yeah, we all got that in us.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
So, anyways, but it's like, anyways, yeah, I'd like to see him back. Short answer. Anybody else feel the same way?
Yeah. So Chris, let's say he comes back. What do you think that deal looks like? Because the whole word on the street is that he was never really offered anything, and he would take the same deal that our new safety from the Texans took. And I mean, my initial reaction was, well, yeah, I bet you would take that, but why would we be signing a safety your age for a deal like that? I mean, my head's at the you're getting 1 year deals from here on out, and that's just it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, to quote Rainey Gizzerli, who covers or writes blogs about the Royals, there's no such thing as a bad 1 year deal. So yeah, if he wants to come back on a 1 year deal, definitely. I'm not going to push back on that at all.
Yeah, I mean, either that or like one with a mutual option for a second, something to that effect. And I'd even go more along the lines of let's make the thing fully guaranteed. Make the thing fully guaranteed for this first year, and let's get it to the point where it's the 10 to 12-ish million kind of range. It's like, there's a little bit of paying the player you were, but I think you could pay him as the player that he is for 1 year for that.
Yeah, no, agreed. And they have the cap space too, where they could, I don't know, they go like 1 for 8 or something like that. I mean, that's not going to hurt them cap wise, and definitely not going to hurt them next year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, so I know that there's the, my side, your side, and the truth. And the math outside is that, you know, he wasn't offered a contract. I kind of take it as the Chiefs being quiet, not, you know, agreeing or denying. And I always just kind of read between the lines as, well, yeah, no, there was not a 3+ year contract that was not offered. And I don't believe that it was just radio silence and Brett Veach lost your agent's phone number over the course of the entire season. It's like they were clearly talking. Did anything ever get printed out? No, probably because your agent said that we're not even looking at anything that's not 3 years with, you know, 2/3 of it guaranteed. Well, then yes, no, you didn't get a contract offer.
Yep, 100% agree.
Yeah, got it. All right, Brian, anything else Chiefs weighing on your mind before we get into the draft this Thursday, or want to go into final takes?
I can't think of anything else. I'm just looking forward to I like that last year around this time I was always like, is it September yet? And I'm feeling that same way again. Just how fast this thing does go when it's not football season. I guess when you're a Jayhawks fan and now the baseball season's going, but I'm looking forward to the next season. So no, I say we go on to the next thing.
Got it. All right, Chris, I know you have a good final take ready to go. So what's up?
Yeah, so Jay Wright retired from as being Villanova's men's head coach in basketball. You know, Jay Wright, I think after the retirements of Roy Williams and Mike Krzyzewski, you could probably argue that Jay Wright or Bill Self is the current best men's basketball coach. What's really interesting about that, and this is something that you know, I heard some talk about. So I love listening to Gary Parrish on CBS. He comes on my favorite show on A10, and then I listen to his podcast every now and then on it's called The Eye on College Basketball. But what's interesting about him retiring, and also just really it's the change in paradigm right now in college basketball, and we talked a little bit about name, image, and likeness, and then also the transfer portal and how college basketball has really changed in terms of how difficult it is to recruit and actually develop players, the way that college coaches have typically done throughout the years. And in some ways, it's actually burnt out some coaches. I don't know if that's the case with Jay Wright. Gary actually did say that Chris Mack, who ended up, he resigned. I think he was fired by Louisville. He's actually not even all that eager to go back and find another college basketball job. So it's going to be interesting just by the fact that it's really, at least currently, stretched college basketball coaches a little bit more thin, and some might be not willing to adjust and deal with that lifestyle or try to figure out a new way to manage. And there may be some others that are totally game for that. And we'll see how Bill Self does with that. The perception, at least from Gary's side, is he thinks Bill is actually up for that. Like he's, just by the fact that he's actually riding out this whole thing with the NCAA, and he's fighting it, and he ended up signing that lifetime contract. That's something that we probably don't have to worry about in Lawrence, but you may see this some other prominent head coaches or head coaches that just they end up getting let go and maybe not even wanting to come back to college basketball just because of the changing landscape as far as how rosters from year to year are maintained.
I often hear that whenever they talk about coaches being burnt out, or I guess Roy said that whenever the Tar Heels, and maybe Jay Wright hasn't really addressed that. I wonder if it's, I don't know what they mean by that precisely, but I wonder if it's like, they don't like, whenever a player is signed, they don't have to worry about some other coach being in their ear saying, enter the portal next year and come join my team. Yeah. Like they're kind of more focused on developing the team, the strategy and all that. I wonder if that's it. I don't know, but I always talk about like, this isn't what I'm used to. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like recruiting, but I guess it's way different.
Because the recruiting itself is a grind, but when you think about it, you didn't have to go back and then re-recruit your own team as well. That's where it's added on to the, I guess, the off season now that men's college basketball typically gets.
Yeah, transfer portal's definitely been a dynamic game changer to say the least. But yeah, feels good knowing that good ones in Lawrence.
Yes,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
no doubt.
gotcha. Brian, you got anything?
Yeah, let me see here. I want to talk about the show Winning Time: The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty on
Oh, I
HBO.
love that show. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real. I want to like recommend that show. It's evidently nowhere near truthful. I would say it's I think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said it's like watching caricatures do like a drama. So don't, but it's still entertaining. It's still fun. They did a good job making it, but don't think that if you see Jerry West acting the way he is, like he's like very adamant that's not how it was or how he was.
He's asking to be redacted from the series.
That which I've never heard that. But yeah, I mean that I can imagine like he's just minding his own business. Like, what are you talking about? We had a great time back then. Why are y'all doing this to me? Like, I didn't do anything to you guys. Why are you treating me like this? But I can see that being frustrating. From an entertainment perspective, it's a very enjoyable show to watch, so I recommend it. But yeah, don't think you're reading a history book here. It's history the same way History Channel is history. No, it's the same way Ancient Aliens is history, I suppose. So.
Yeah, they exaggerate a lot. I think, especially Paul Westhead. Here recently, it's just like, come on, Paul. Just the way that they make him seem so meek and timid. I don't think that's true either. But it's they do a lot of exaggeration of a lot of characters on that series.
Yeah. So it's like Moneyball. I mean, Moneyball is a phenomenal movie, but there's just stuff you look at. It's like, come on. And the guy who took the major exception is Art Howe, the guy who's the manager, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman. And I remember him going on the record saying, first of all, when Mags gets cut, I had to do that. Billy Beane didn't go in and do that and set the guy down after they traded for Ricardo Rincon. He's like, that's crap.
Or Social Network, the Facebook movie. I remember I've been working in software startups now for a while. And like to think like these coders throwing like a pool party where you have a zip line over a thing, like I'm thinking more of a bunch of energy drinks and a messy house where it's really dark and no one leaves. There's just a lot of screen time, I'm thinking, and not a whole lot of this going on. I liked whenever Zuckerberg was on SNL, I was like asking the other guy, what'd you think of the movie? He goes, it was interesting. No, they're just a bunch of nerds coding. That's all it was.
Yeah. No, I mean that movie was written by a guy named Ben Mesrick, or it was based on a book written by Ben Mesrick. He's a novelist, journalist, so he'll sit there and say journalistically the book that he wrote is intact and everything. And I want to say it's Michael Lewis wrote Moneyball, and so it's the same type of thing. I love reading people like that, but I mean reading the book that The Social Network was based on, I can't remember what it was called for the life of me right now off the top of my head, but that book and that movie are different. Jesse Eisenberg and Michael Garfield are not how I pictured those two, but I guess they kind of look enough like them that whatever.
And Winning Time is based on a book written by Jeff Pearlman, so
so watch at your own risk, I suppose.
Yeah. No, and they have a disclaimer too in the closing credits.
They do. Like, for the love of God, this is not based on a true story. Like, this is fictionalized. So they do. That's probably like what will keep Jerry West lawyers at bay. They literally say it's fictional.
They make Jerry West look like a temperamental lunatic in this show. I mean, it's I can understand.
Like he has a temper tantrum on a golf course, and I played enough golf. Like, hey, you're not supposed to do that. What's up with you? How dare you?
Well, it's like when people pull out history books, they're like, well, the Hamilton musical. It's like, can you just go away and let me watch this? This is close enough to accurate that we're good to go. The Americans won the Revolutionary War. Alexander Hamilton doesn't get the press time that he probably deserves for everything that he did. Can we just call that face value and watch a musical?
Exactly.
But anyway. So my final take, I don't think we've talked about the World Cup qualifying is almost done and the U.S. made it. So that's going to make this World Cup, more exciting for me. I was rooting for England last time. Wasn't upset that France, won. I watch a ton of international soccer, and so I know like players on all these teams and stuff like that. The U.S. is in a group with Iran and England. which is crazy. And then we're awaiting to find out if we get, I think it's Scotland, Wales, or Ukraine. And so we could end up
years ago they
with
got
a
stuck
group
in the
with
same
Ukraine in
pool.
it, which would be interesting.
Yeah,
What's
like
up?
8 years ago, didn't they get stuck with Germany in their pool? And I can't remember who else, but they were calling
Yeah,
it
I
like
want to
the
say they
toughest
had
group.
Germany, Ghana, and one other,
Yeah.
and that was a group of death, because
That's right.
anytime in a big soccer tournament, there's one group of 4 where 2 come out and it's just a complete buzzsaw. They call that a group of death. I don't think we have a group of death. I mean, Iran's a tougher team than, a lot of people that don't really follow the sport closely probably think. I mean, England is going to be a World Cup final, champion betting favorite. The US, this is probably a campaign too early to really expect anything from him. Wales has some pretty stout players, and Ukraine would be the feel good story of everything. So,
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
but the one thing that I say about the World Cup is this one coming up is a complete travesty already, just based on what Qatar did to build up the infrastructure. I mean, the whole thing's corrupt because FIFA's corrupt. It's like the IOC, just there's no point in even really getting into anything. It's clearly corrupt. It's clearly like stuff was bought, but I don't think even FIFA was necessarily on board with building soccer stadiums in the desert with air conditioning using Nepalese slave labor. But lo and behold, that's how we did this. And really not looking forward to how much they F up the international, like European non-MLS soccer schedules by having the World Cup in November. I think that's kind of ridiculous too. That being said, I'm probably going to watch every single match and I'm looking forward to it. Go USA.
Go USA.
Go USA. All right. Anything else, guys?
No, I felt good. That was a good podcast. I feel pretty good about that one. Let's wrap it up there.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see y'all on Thursday. Cheers.
Chiefs.
Chiefs.